Stop messing around, stop fooling around, stop delaying, stop procrastinating. Get up, get out, get it done. Everything is possible, nothing is a problem, and anything can be overcome. I just get my ass up out of bed, I get my shit together, and I get out and I start the fight. And that will transform you from a mere mortal into a superhuman being. I've never, ever, ever met anybody who told me that they got rich watching their IRA or their 401k.
Welcome to the Daily Cash Flow. My name is George Robson.
I'm Peter Siegel. Welcome.
So Peter, I want to talk about the power of changing your mind. We've talked a little bit about how it's important to make the decision based on the best information that's available to you.
Right.
But then if new information comes, you want to be flexible enough to change your mind.
Absolutely.
So what are situations where you've changed your mind and where that's improved the outcome for you? I was curious.
Situations where I've changed my mind and it turned out for the better.
Yeah.
I can think of a few. For a long time I was working in and investing in and managing properties in New York City. And over that long period of time, I was resolved to think that New York City was this unique, special, singularly beautiful marketplace where you could invest, where you could own properties, build a business, and it would be that way forever, and I would be incentivized to continue to grow and expand there and continue to invest there. And that changed. It changed so much that I had to look really hard at the landscape, at the investment landscape, the political landscape, the economic landscape, the regulatory landscape. All of those things shifted over the duration of time that I was building and growing in New York City. And it got to the point where it was no longer a great opportunity, a great market for me to continue to invest and dedicate long-term dollars and resources to. And in fact, I chose to focus more heavily on my new business in other markets and other areas that were just simply better investment alternatives. New York City became too tough to make money. It became overly competitive. We talked about how competitive environments are good. This was overly competitive. Pricing became irrational. The regulatory environment was burdensome and in some cases draconian. And the political environment was tough. I mean, it's a very anti-property owner in terms of public sentiment, in terms of the politicians and how they view the voter bases, and in terms of the landlord-tenant relationship. It was very, very tough to have a successful, peaceful landlord-tenant relationship in many cases. So it was just difficult. You couldn't make a whole lot of money.
Did your peers question that move for you when you did?
Some did.
Yeah.
Some did, but that soon went away as we found success in other markets. Now, I still own and operate in New York, but it's very tough. It's very, very tough. I've not committed new dollars to New York in a long time. Another example of how it changed my mind, George, is this, the very thing that we're doing right now. I was a consumer of information and content on social media, but I was not a producer of content on social media. And when I made the decision with you to be out here in front of the camera and start producing content like this, and to cultivate and nurture a community of people out there that are now our audience, it was a really very liberating thing. A lot of positive outcomes have happened as a result of it. I've gotten a lot of positive energy, positive comments, positive feedbacks. I enjoy it. It helps me hone my thinking process and my mental skill sets to be able to speak with you and with everyone about these topics on a weekly basis. I enjoy the feedback and the commentary. And so for me, it's a way to stay involved and engaged with a like-minded and interested public. And so I've gotten a lot of benefit from that. And you know what else I find? I find that in 2021, that producing content for social media and interacting with the social media public who you don't know personally, you only know them online, is as much of a calling card as it is anything else. 20 years ago, we used to walk around and hand out business cards. Here's my card, can I get your card? Here's my card with my phone number on it. And that's how we created relationships or followed up with people, and we collected business cards. Now, it's really great because I can tell people, hey, if you want to get to know me, if you want to learn about how I think and what I do, follow me at Siegel Cap. It's been fun and I enjoy that, so I find it to be a positive thing that's come from having changed my mind. And speaking of New York City, I lived in New York City for 27 years. I always thought I would live in New York City forever. It was the center of the universe, the center of cultural activities, entertainment activities, business activities. I mean, I cut my teeth, I got my core business skills while living and working in New York City. Why would I ever leave, right? It was the center of the universe, and I had to and wanted to be there, and I would always be there. Then what happened? I moved out one day, and I didn't realize the sacrifice that I was making and how much I was missing out on by living in the city. As much as I thought I was not missing out on anything by living in the city, I was missing out on a lot for me. So I had a good run. I was 27 years a New York City resident, and I looked at everything in front of me and I said, you know what, it might be time for a change. I pulled the trigger, made the change, moved outside of the city, and I found how happy I could be even beyond the level of happiness that I was feeling in New York. And the process of going through the decision making to leave living in New York City was a tough process, but I had to make a decision based on the information that was in front of me at the time. And at the time, it was clear that perhaps there was something better for me on the other side of the river.
How do you remind yourself of that now when you come up to a decision where you feel like there's a sunk cost, where you feel like you've really dug your heels into a certain position?
I'm constantly analyzing. I mean, you're talking about a sunk cost, so if there's in fact a cost involved, I'm constantly aware of it. Perhaps I make a turn, perhaps I stay the course, who knows, but I'm always looking at data, I'm always looking at information, and I'm always looking to see if the decision we made yesterday is the right decision for tomorrow, always. And I think anyone in business has to do that.
The New York example hits home for me, because I went to school in New York and I have loads of friends that are up there, and even before pandemic, that's a constant conversation with almost each and every one of them of, it's a love and hate thing where it's, oh, this is the most amazing place ever, but there's all these advantages to leaving outside.
I thought I'd be there forever, George. I really did, but you know what? You reach a point where paying a lot to live in a small place, it's great when you're young, it's great when you're single, it's great when you're broke, it's great when you're the richest guy in the world. Like if you're in the in-betweens and you get a little older later on in life, it's tough. And to my diehard New York friends and family and peers, I love you, and I'm always there to visit and be with you. I still have interest in New York and people in New York, and I'm still very connected to it. Just for me, it was the right decision to change my mind.
When starting out in an investment partnership or syndication, what are the responsibilities and relationship that's shared between a general partner and a limited partner?
Great question. So every syndication has the general partner, often called the sponsor, and the limited partners, who are the investors. Nowadays, George, everybody is a general partner. Everybody's putting deals together and going out to raise money for their deals. Inexperienced operators and general partners to very experienced operators and general partners. So the investor public currently is flooded with tons of investment syndication opportunities. So how do you weed through that? That could be a whole other episode that we do about how to weed through syndication opportunities. But generally speaking, the general partner or the sponsor is the one that puts the whole deal together, creates the pipeline, locks it down under contract, puts the deposit down to get to first base, does all the due diligence, does all the underwriting, obtains the insurance, obtains whatever debt is necessary, puts together the documentation to send out to the limited partners. And then when you close on the opportunity, the general partner is the one that runs the day-to-day of the business, of the investment. So the general partner is really the key person, the key element of the opportunity. You want to make sure that that person is vetted. We'll get to that in a second. The limited partners are the investors. They have the money. They're looking to deploy capital into investment opportunities, and they want to do it smoothly, and they want to do it quickly and efficiently, and they want to do it with a successful operator that's got a successful opportunity. The two things that really dictate to the limited partner what they're going to be dealing with are, number one, the GP or the sponsor themselves, personality-wise, experience-wise, strength-wise, competence-wise, and then number two, the LLC operating agreement document. So the LLC operating agreement document is going to contain all of the information that you as a limited partner or investor are going to be subject to. You're going to want to read through that, see what the fee structures are. You're going to see what the scope of capabilities and powers are of the sponsor. You're going to want to see what the priority of distributions are, how money's treated, how the accounts will accrue. If there's preferred return, if there's not preferred return, it'll contain definitions of all the various words that are used throughout the body of the document. That's what's going to really dictate the nature of the relationship. But The truth of the matter is, if you've got a great GP, if you've got a great sponsor, the document's the document. You're really only going to look at it once when you sign it. Because if the GP knows what they're doing, you're going to be off to the races, they're going to have your money, you're going to be invested in this opportunity, and you're betting on the GP as the jockey to get you to the finish line. You're probably never ever going to look at the LLC operating agreement again. So I encourage limited partners and investors to review their agreements, but really be comfortable with the person who's the GP or the sponsor. See, here's what every GP wants. Every general partner wants the limited partner to invest, to sit back, to reach out when they need something, and otherwise chill out and wait for the money to flow to them. That's what the GP wants. Here's what every limited partner wants. Every investor who's a limited partner wants to find a great GP who can deliver results, who can deliver returns, who can have a thick enough skin that can make problems that arise, because problems will come up and issues will come up along the way, that will make those problems the GP's problem and not the LP's problem. The LP wants to get their K1 on time every year without having to ask for it, and even more than on time, they want it a little bit ahead of time. It's tax season, everyone's stressed, everyone's trying to track down K1s and who sent them and who hasn't. If you're a GP, get your K1 out to your investors quickly and smoothly. So therein lies the GP-LP relationship. You know, the LP wants to make some money and not have it be stressful. The GP wants to take in the money and not have it be stressful. If you're an LP, look for a great GP. There are great GPs out there and there are shitty GPs out there. The marketplace is such where people that have historically had a barrier to entry of getting into the markets, into the business, are now in. And so there's a deluge of shitty investment opportunities, subpar markets, subpar assets being run by subpar sponsors. Anyone can be a GP, not everyone can be a great GP. Find a great GP, find a great sponsor, invest your money with that person or people. Over the long term, you'll see good results.
We mentioned before about how important it is to be an expert in many things.
Right.
Construction being one of them.
Yeah.
As a property manager, what do you need to know about construction to really excel and be excellent?
Good question. I think every market is largely similar. There's going to be some differences from market to market depending on where you are. If you're in the mountains at altitude, or if you're at sea level at the coast, or if you're in an urban, densely populated city environment. So for us in our markets, George, the top things that we have our property managers become experts in and stay on top of: windows and doors, appliances and appliance repair. Those things break all the time, so we need to be versed in the language of that stuff. HVAC, light plumbing, light electric, and here's a big one: weatherproofing, waterproofing. So a lot of that is roofing, siding, flashing where there's windows and doors and lintels. Masonry work is included in that as well. Our area is very heavily impacted by weather. We get storms, we get driving rain, we get hot, humid summers. So there's lots of expansion and lots of contraction in the various materials that make up an apartment building. And so what we do at the property management office is manage through the issues that can arise with all those changing conditions throughout the course of the year. We're pretty darn good at it. For example, I can tell you that there's a very popular stackable washer dryer that we'll put into our units. 9 out of 10 times when there's a repair request for that unit, it's the same repair. So we have our maintenance staff trained on how to make that repair. We source the parts from any one of a number of widely available online parts supplier sites. And our guys can go in and make the repair. We don't have to call for outside third-party appliance repair. And we do it very effectively. It does not void warranties. It doesn't compromise anybody's use or operation of the machine. We're quite good at it. But that's an example where you don't then have to call out and pay the external fees and charges necessary to work with a third-party vendor or supplier. So your plumbing systems in multifamily use, I mean, really you're talking about kitchen sinks, dishwashers, bathroom showers and tubs if you have an older building, and bathroom faucets. Generally, that's it. You don't have really anything else to deal with. If you can keep all of that working smoothly and without issue, you're going to find that your long-term maintenance costs and headaches and time spent on maintenance is going to be way down, and that's where you want it. You don't want to keep going back to fix the same stuff over and over and over. You want to fix it once, and you want to know that it's going to be right for the long term. And so if you want your buildings to operate well for the long term, make sure your maintenance staff knows how to fix it right the first time so that you're not constantly sending them back. I suggest you get your hands dirty, roll up your sleeves, and get at it.
Yeah.
You have to become an expert at it. Know it. Those are the common things that happen for us in our buildings, in our markets. Up in the mountains, at higher altitudes where temperatures are colder longer, you're going to have way more susceptibility to ice and freezing conditions that can impact window seals, compromised HVAC systems where cold air is fighting against your HVAC system to provide heat. You're going to see that stuff in the extreme areas, but you have to know what your area is most susceptible to, figure out those 3, 4, 5, 6 things, become an expert in that, make sure your team and your staff are experts at it. You'll be fine. Just make sure you do it right the first time.
A few weeks ago on the podcast, you mentioned how important it was to be hungry. I think you said hungry as fuck.
Yeah, always.
Yeah. How do you stay hungry as fuck when you've reached a certain level of success? How do you avoid complacency? How do you keep that hunger alive?
It's in my DNA. On a cellular level, I'm hungry as fuck. I'm not really complacent. I know that if I'm not growing, expanding, I know that if I'm not moving forward, I'm dying, I'm getting trampled on. And I believe that. I believe that that's the way our world is. If you're not growing, you're dying. So on a cellular level, I have a lot of drive, I have a lot of ambition, I'm never really satisfied, and I always want to move forward quickly, firmly, strongly, competently, confidently. And those are things that I seem to do. It's in my bloodstream. But also intellectually, on a conscious level, I know that moving forward is the right thing. I know that expanding and growing, adapting is the right thing. I'm in business. I run teams. I've got investments. I've got obligations. I've got to be competitive. I've got to stay sharp. So yeah, I got to be hungry, but I got to be sharp and competitive. Hunger feeds into that as well. So I know that if I choose to move forward, if I choose to stay sharp, to hone my skills, to stay on top of my game, I know that if I make the choice to push myself forward, despite whatever adversity I might be experiencing at the time, that it's the right thing. I never want to choose to sit and do nothing and not evaluate and not move, grow, expand. I'm not going to sit there like a fat ass and just do nothing. I think that's how I stay hungry.
Yeah, it's kind of being in business, that there's kind of a useful feedback loop there where you're getting immediate feedback based on your performance. And so it's a good thing to kind of feed into your necessity for hunger.
If you're in business, no matter what industry, no matter what business you're in, if you're in business, I hope and think that you'll agree that you got to move forward, you have to grow, you have to expand. If you sit still, not a good thing. Let me know, leave a comment below, because sometimes I'm shocked and surprised to hear that people will say, yeah, I'm just going to sit still and sit on my ass, and what do you mean growth? What do you mean expansion? That takes money, I can't do that. Whatever people are going to say. And I'm learning a lot about what people say. So it's really, it's been an interesting few weeks.
So nothing in real estate happens overnight. You said this
Correct.
before.
Doesn't.
That could sound like a bad thing to some people.
Why would it sound like what's bad about it?
Well, I think some people, as we've said, want to get rich quick overnight. Why is that maybe a good thing?
Look, I don't see it as a bad thing. I don't know why people would see it as a bad thing. It is what it is. You're talking about land and bricks and mortar. These are things that aren't technology. These are things that aren't perishable. You're not going to have big swings in volatility from owning or managing real estate assets. You just don't get it with that. And that's why real estate is a lagging economic indicator compared to perhaps jobs, which are leading economic indicators, right? If the company's going to lay off 100 people, they're going to do that first, and then later on they're going to get rid of their office. So I don't think it's a bad thing that real estate moves slowly. Look, you don't get crushing guillotine hammer effect if certain economic events should occur, pandemics, crashes, whatever. Those are usually more prolonged. In real estate, if you're going to feel any economic impact, it happens over a more extended period of time, and then when there's a correction or a bounce back, that tends to happen quickly in real estate. Look, real estate is a slow burn. Nothing happens overnight. It gives you, as the owner, as the manager, as the investor, the opportunity to lay it all out in front of you. You're not operating with a gun to your head, hopefully, and you can make sound decisions, and you can bid things out multiple times, and you can seek the best financing without there being a whole lot of pressure if you play your cards right. So there's a lot of advantages to being invested in and working in an industry where your assets are lagging indicators compared to the rest of the economic landscape, for sure.
What specific sacrifices have you made in order to succeed, and how are you confident that those will pay off?
Wow. So I think looking back, sacrifices that I've had to make along the way were not only working from 9 to 5, but working from 5 to 9. And I still do that today. Great things will be way easier to achieve if you make important sacrifices. If you don't really make the sacrifices, it's going to be much more difficult to achieve greatness economically, financially, in your career. And if you just work 9 to 5, it can be fine. It's going to be way tougher to break out and achieve greatness if you're just giving it the 9 to 5. So for me, I always wanted to achieve more and do more and rise up a little bit more than just working a 9 to 5 gave me the opportunity to. There were countless, and still are, countless nights where I'm pulling all-nighters. I'm waking up at 3 in the morning, I'm working for a few hours. I lock myself in a room and I work and I get stuff done because I get pumped, I get jacked, I get motivated for it, I get really competitive about it, I get really into it. So that's all a sacrifice. There are two sides to every coin, because when I do that, it's time away from my family, from relaxing, from reading, things that I would otherwise want to do. But these are things that have to get done, so I challenge myself and push myself to do them. Two sides to every coin. Everything in life is a trade-off. You can work a little and you're going to get a little. If you want to get a lot, you got to work a lot. The trade-off for working a lot is you have the sacrifices that you have to make: friends, family, health, recreation. You know, when I was starting off, and even after I was starting off, I mean, I lived within my means. I didn't own a car, and when I did own a car, it was a complete shitbox. I didn't dress up like a total baller, and I didn't do a lot of luxury travel. Now, appreciate the backdrop here. I'm an ambitious, driven guy in New York City, competitive environment, business environment, great environment to hone skills, cut your teeth, and to make money. And I wasn't going to St. Bart's, and I wasn't jet setting, and I wasn't doing a lot of stuff. I did my own version of it sometimes, but it was definitely low rent and on a budget. I continued to rent an apartment in New York City for the longest time. I didn't really own a home until way later on in life, when I could afford it without it impacting anything. You've heard me talk about that before. I feel like that was a great decision for me, and I think it's going to be an appropriate decision for an increasingly large population of our country. So you asked about confidence and how making certain sacrifices allowed me to be confident. Here's the deal. You get confident by being good at shit. You get good at shit by doing it over and over and over and over and over again. There is no substitute for perseverance, for consistency, for repetition. That's how you get good at stuff. And if you want to be confident, don't walk away after 1 or 2 attempts. You got to pound it out. Do it over and over and over again. When I was a kid and I didn't have a lot of business going on, and I was like, what the fuck am I going to do with my time? I got 24 hours in a day and I'm just starting off. I would lock myself in a room in my apartment in front of a big screen with Microsoft Excel, and I would do modeling drills, and you've heard me talk about living in the cell. I would live in the cell. I would do it for days. I would do that over the course of months, years even. I was doing that. I got so into the cells, I got so into the spreadsheets that the math that would result by me toggling one of the cells, it would be second nature to me. I got so good at it that I knew the impact of income and vacancies. I knew the impact of variable expenses and the different paths that those expenses could take. I knew how that would impact net operating income. So I got really good because I shoved myself up the ass of Microsoft Excel, And I didn't come out for a long, long time. I know people today that are like, oh, I'm not that good at Excel and I don't really spend time. Spend time on it. That's the only way you get good at stuff. Perseverance, repetition, and consistency. There's no substitute. Whatever it is you want to be good at and get confidence in, do it over and over and over and over and over again until you're awesome at it.
So first Ask Quest, where do you go to learn? When you want to know something, is it YouTube, books? Are there particular friends that you
Where do I go
out?
to learn? If I want to learn something, I find the top 1 or 2 or 3 experts in my orbit that I can have access to. Yeah. I seek them out and I will try and leech off of their knowledge and learn from them. Learning happens in many forms, in many different ways, when you expect it and when you don't expect it. So sure, you could seek it out on the internet. Sure, you could seek it out from a mentor or from an expert. But I find if you have the mindset where you're open to it, it sort of happens all the time, whether you're trying to learn or not. Yeah. You know, really that's what failure is. Failure are just learning experiences. So, you know, when I would fail a lot, I was not really aware that I was learning, but looking back on it, I was learning all the time.
Yeah, Tony Robbins, no such thing as failure, just results. You know?
I believe that. Well, look, I don't know if I believe that. I think there is such thing as failure. But it's what you do with it that really counts. Right. Are you going to let it keep you down? Are you going to let it stop you in your tracks? Are you going to let it bum you out? Or are you going to bitch slap it in the face and move on, learn from it? Don't repeat the same mistake twice and move on.
What are you excited about in this year? We haven't really talked about that. What are you things you're looking forward to in 2021?
Personally, business-wise?
All of the above. Are there things that are on the horizon where you're like, hell yeah, let's get after that?
Yeah, so it's the beginning of the year. It's January, still mid-January. I've just planned out my whole year. That took me about 4 seconds to do because my whole year was already planned anyway. Why? Because my projects that I had, my pipeline that I have, was already set in place. So I knew that once I finished the 5 projects that I finished in 2020, I'd now be left to focus on the 5 projects that I have for 2021. I know what my year looks like. I even know what my 2022 looks like, to tell you the truth. I get very excited about that. That's a level of certainty that provides myself and I think certain members on my team with a good sense of security, a good sense of purpose for what we're doing throughout the year. We know what the goals and objectives are. We work together to move the ship together to achieve that stuff. I'm excited for a few new opportunities that recently came my way that I'm now considering, that the people on the other side of the table have offered to me and made available to me. So I'm very grateful to have new opportunities. And that's part of the growth thing that we were talking about earlier. I like to grow and do new things. I mean, I have my 5 projects that I'm actively working on that aren't yet mature buildings or mature assets, so we're developing those. But I want to take on some new stuff. If I'm not growing, I'm dying. So I got a phone call last week from someone that wants to do for me, it would be a very big deal to do it, and I'm going to consider it. Personally, this year, I'm very excited to get on with post-pandemic life, to see people get vaccinated, to see people be healthy. Because with that is going to come so many other things: togetherness, family, friends, parties, dinners. I want to go skiing again with my buddies. I want to go to the beach and have family and friends congregate and gather. I'm so excited to do that stuff. We all are.
All right, well, thank you so much, Peter. Appreciate you taking the time. Anything else you want to touch on before we close out?
Anything else I want to touch on? If you like what you're hearing from us here on this channel, if you like talking about real estate, if you like talking about investing, if you like talking about business and entrepreneurship, if you like talking about success and motivation and the stuff that comes with it, follow us on Instagram @SiegelCap, follow us on TikTok, check out our YouTube channel. New Jersey, New York, Florida, Colorado, California, where are you? I want to see you here. Leave your comments, like and follow, tell your friends, I love you.
Sweet. All right, Peter. Well, thanks so much. I love you too.
Thanks.
I'll see you next week.